The restaurant was almost empty, the scent of grilled steak and warm bread still lingering in the air. I wiped down the last table, sighing as my shift dragged into overtime. Another long night, another exhausting shift, just barely making enough to survive. But then I saw him, a boy, maybe 7 or 8, standing outside in the freezing cold, his small frame barely covered by the ragged hoodie clinging to his frail body. His hollow eyes were locked on the leftover bread basket on the counter, but he didn't dare step inside. My chest tightened. No one else noticed him. The world kept moving, people laughing, drinking, eating without a second thought. But I saw him, and I couldn't look away. I grabbed a fresh plate, loaded it with food, real food, not scraps, steak, mashed potatoes, warm bread, and a bottle of water. Without hesitation, I pushed through the restaurant doors and crouched down in front of him. "Hey," I said gently. "You hungry?" The boy flinched, his eyes darting to the side, as if expecting someone to yell at him, chase him away. "It's okay," I assured him, pushing the plate toward him. "Eat." He hesitated, his fingers twitching before he grabbed the food and started shoveling it into his mouth. He ate like someone who hadn't had a real meal in days. My stomach clenched. "What's your name?" I asked softly. He swallowed hard, barely looking up. "Leo." "Leo," I repeated, smiling despite the tightness in my chest. "Where are your parents?" His hands froze around the bread, his shoulders tensing. "Don't have any." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Where are you staying?" Leo hesitated, then pointed down the street. Behind the gas station. He was homeless, alone, sleeping outside in the bitter cold. I gripped my arms to keep from shaking. How could this happen? How could no one care? Before I could say anything, a deep voice behind me made me jump. "What's going on here?" I turned sharply, my heart hammering. A man stood just outside the restaurant, watching. He was tall, dressed in a dark, expensive coat, his piercing gaze fixed on me and Leo. His presence was intimidating. I had no idea who he was, and I had no idea that my simple act of kindness had just changed my life forever. The man's eyes locked onto me, unreadable. A slow gust of cold wind swept between us, making Leo shiver as he clutched the warm plate against his chest. I swallowed hard, standing protectively in front of the boy. I was just giving him food. The stranger's expression didn't change, but his gaze flicked from me to Leo, lingering on the boy's fragile frame. "You work here?" His voice was low, deep, commanding. "Yes," I replied cautiously, my heart racing. "You always feed strangers for free?" I squared my shoulders, bracing myself for a lecture. "If they're starving, yes." For a second, he didn't say anything. Then, something flickered in his eyes. Something dark, something knowing. He pulled out a sleek black wallet, flipping it open with practiced ease. My breath hitched as I caught a glimpse of a thick wad of crisp $100 bills. "Don't." I held up a hand, my jaw tightening. "If you're going to throw money at me for charity points, I don't need it." A small smirk ghosted over his lips. "Interesting." He slipped the wallet back into his coat, his gaze resting on me as if I were a puzzle he was trying to solve. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the night. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Who the hell was he? The next morning, I arrived at work expecting another long shift of scraping by on tips. Instead, I stepped into chaos. My manager, Greg, was waiting for me at the front, his face red with fury. "In my office. Now!" My stomach dropped. I followed him inside, the door slamming shut behind us. "Do you have any idea what you did last night?" He seethed. I frowned. I gave a kid some food?" His fist hit the desk. "You stole from the restaurant. It was leftovers. I don't care. The owner found out, and now we're all screwed." My heart skipped a beat. "The owner?" Greg shoved his phone into my hands. My stomach flipped as I saw the headline plastered across the screen. "Billionaire Lucas Calloway spotted outside diner after witnessing employee break company rules." Lucas Calloway. The name slammed into me like a truck. I had served him before. He was a ghost of Wall Street, a ruthless investor who had taken down entire corporations with a single deal. And I had called him out. Greg ripped his phone from my hands. "You're fired." I flinched. "Wait. No. Get out." Anger boiled in my veins. "For what? Feeding a starving child?" "I don't care. The owner wants you gone. You're replaceable." The words sliced through me like a knife. I turned on my heel and stormed out, my hands shaking. Outside, the air was colder than before, biting into my skin. Leo was waiting by the curb, his eyes hopeful. I forced a smile, but my chest was tight. "Hey, kid." His smile faded. "Why are you upset?" I swallowed hard. "Because people suck." A sleek black car pulled up beside me. The back window rolled down. Lucas Calloway sat inside, his expression unreadable. "Get in," he said. I hesitated. "Why?" His gaze didn't waver. "Because you just lost your job. And I'm about to change your life." I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me not to get into a stranger's car, especially one as powerful as Lucas Calloway. But then I looked down at Leo, his frail hands clutched around his nearly empty plate, his breath visible in the freezing night air. I had nothing left to lose. I opened the door and slid inside, pulling Leo in beside me. Lucas barely spared us a glance before knocking on the partition. "Drive." The car pulled into the street, gliding like a shadow through the city. I shifted uncomfortably. "Why are you helping me?" His fingers drummed against his knee. "Because you interest me." I scowled. "I'm not a charity case. Didn't say you were." His tone was unreadable, but his gaze flicked toward Leo, sharp and calculating. "How long has he been on the streets?" I glanced at Leo, who was now half asleep against my arm. "I don't know. But no one else was helping him." Lucas hummed. "And you did." I crossed my arms. "Not for attention." His lips twitched, as if I had said something amusing. "I know." I hated how he looked at me, like he saw everything. We drove in silence until the car pulled up to a skyscraper that could eat my old diner whole. The driver opened the door, and Lucas stepped out like a man who owned the entire world, because he probably did. I hesitated. "You coming?" he asked. I clutched Leo's hand and followed. Inside, the penthouse was a whole different universe. Glass walls with a breathtaking city view, leather couches, a kitchen that looked straight out of a billionaire's dream. Lucas shrugged off his coat, tossing it over a chair. "Stay here tonight." I blinked. "What?" He poured himself a drink. "You need a place. The kid needs food. Take it." I hesitated. "Why?" His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time his mask cracked, just a little. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing." I stared at him, stunned. Lucas Calloway, homeless once? I didn't have time to ask before he turned away. "Get some sleep," he said over his shoulder. "Tomorrow we talk business." Morning came faster than expected. Leo was curled up on the plush couch, buried in a blanket so soft it probably cost more than my rent. I found Lucas in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, sipping coffee. "Sit," he said, motioning to the stool across from him. I did. He slid a contract across the counter. "What's this?" I frowned. "A job offer," he said casually. "Work for me." I nearly choked. "Excuse me?" Lucas leaned back. "You need money. You need stability. And based on last night, you don't hesitate to stand your ground." I could use someone like that. I stared at him. "Doing what, exactly?" His smirk returned. "Surviving in my world." I swallowed hard. This was dangerous. But so was being jobless, with a kid who had nowhere to go. I exhaled. "What's the catch?" His smirk widened. "Smart girl." His next words sent a chill down my spine. "You'll be stepping into a world where kindness is a weakness. You still want in." I should have said no. I should have walked away. Instead, I signed my name. And that's the moment my life stopped being my own. The first 24 hours were a nightmare. Lucas didn't ease me in. There was no grace period, no learning curve. "You'll shadow me," he had said, handing me a folder thicker than my arm. I followed him into a world I didn't understand. corporate meetings, brutal negotiations, places where people smiled while planning to destroy each other. And Lucas? He was a shark. He played people like chess pieces, making million-dollar deals with nothing but a few words. I realized something terrifying. He wasn't just rich. He was powerful. And now, I was standing at his side, drowning in waters I wasn't ready for. The first test came faster than expected. A man named Donovan Hale stormed into Lucas's office, slamming a contract on the table. "You played me, Calloway," he growled. I tensed. "Lucas?" He just smirked. "Did I?" Donovan's eyes snapped to me. "Is this your new pet?" Heat crawled up my neck. "Excuse me?" He scoffed. "What, you think a waitress belongs here?" Before I could react, Lucas stood. And the air changed. His voice dropped, low and deadly. "You're standing in my office, insulting someone under my employ." Donovan hesitated. Lucas stepped forward, his presence suffocating. "Apologize," he ordered. Silence. Then, to my shock, Donovan Hale actually backed down. "Fine," he muttered. I spoke out of line. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until he walked out. Lucas sat back down, completely unfazed. "Welcome to the game." I swallowed hard. I wasn't just working for him. I was stepping into war. It didn't take long for people to notice me. I wasn't supposed to be in Lucas's world. I was an outsider. And outsiders? They weren't welcome. Whispers followed me everywhere. "She's just a waitress. She won't last a week. Lucas will toss her aside." But I wasn't going anywhere. Because every time I felt like breaking, Leo's face reminded me why I couldn't. And Lucas? He watched me like a hawk, waiting to see if I'd survive. I had no idea what I had signed up for. But one thing was clear. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I didn't get a break. Lucas was relentless. Meetings, contracts, negotiations. A crash course in his world with no mercy. "Read faster." He snapped as I flipped through a 100-page deal. I scowled. "I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough," he said coolly. "You either keep up or you drown." I gritted my teeth. Fine. If he wanted me to keep up, I would. I forced myself to absorb everything. The legal jargon. The ruthless strategies. How Lucas operated. And then, I started fighting back. The first time I spoke up in a meeting, people laughed. Lucas didn't. I pointed at a section of the contract and tore it apart. "This clause screws us over," I said flatly. "They're setting you up." Silence. Lucas's eyes gleamed. "Fix it," he ordered. And just like that, I proved I wasn't just a waitress anymore. Word spread fast. "Calloway's new hire is dangerous." And suddenly, I was a threat. People whispered. They watched me, waiting for me to fail. One woman, Sabrina Kessler, a corporate shark, cornered me after a meeting. "You don't belong here," she sneered. I met her gaze, unflinching. "Then make me leave." She smirked. "Oh, sweetheart. I will." Started small. Misplaced files. Wrong information. People forgetting to include me in meetings. I knew what was happening. They wanted me gone. Lucas? He didn't help. He watched, waiting to see if I'd survive. So I fought back. I triple-checked everything. Showed up early. Made myself unavoidable. And when Sabrina tried to outmaneuver me, I turned the tables. She tried to block a deal. I found a loophole and sealed it before she could stop me. When Lucas saw the final contract, he smirked. "Nice move." One night I left the office late. Too late. A man stepped out of the shadows. "Walk away," he murmured. "Or next time it won't just be a warning." My blood turned to ice. This wasn't business anymore. This was war. I didn't tell Lucas. I didn't want to look weak. But the next day, Lucas's entire demeanor shifted. "Stay close," he ordered. I frowned. "Why?" He didn't answer. But that night, when I left the building, a black SUV followed me home. I wasn't sure whether to feel safer or more terrified. They didn't come after me. They came after Leo. I got home to find my door open. Leo sat on the couch silent, shaking. A note lay beside him. "Walk away or the kid pays." I saw red. This wasn't just me anymore. I stormed into Lucas's office, slamming the note on his desk. They went after Leo. His expression darkened. He picked up the note. Read it. Then, he burned it. They just made the worst mistake of their lives. Lucas moved like a storm. By morning, 3 companies collapsed. By noon, Sabrina resigned. By night, the man who left the note was missing. Lucas didn't play fair. And now, he was out for blood. Just when I thought I was safe, I found out who was behind it. Greg, my old boss. I confronted him. Why? He sneered. You took something that wasn't yours. What? He leaned in. Lucas Calloway. I went straight to Lucas. Why does Greg hate you? He didn't answer right away. Then, a rare flash of vulnerability. He was my father's business partner, Lucas said quietly. Until I destroyed him, it all made sense now. This wasn't just revenge. This was personal. Greg made me an offer. Leave Lucas. Walk away. And Leo stays safe. I had one night to decide. I met Greg alone. And I called his bluff. I'm not leaving, I said coldly. His smirk faltered. You have no idea what you've just done. I smiled. Neither do you. By the next morning, Greg's entire empire collapsed. His accounts were frozen. His deals gone. Lucas had ripped him apart. And me? I had just declared war against a man who never lost. Lucas pulled me aside. You should have walked away. I met his gaze. You should have let me. A pause. Then, he smirked. Welcome to my world. Greg didn't go quietly. He fought back. But I wasn't the same person I was when this started. I played the game. I outmaneuvered him. And when the dust settled, Lucas and I stood at the top. Leo was safe. Greg was gone. And me? I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. I stood beside Lucas, looking out over the city. He glanced at me. Any regrets? I smirked. Not one, because I had stepped into his world. And now, I wasn't just playing the game. I was rewriting the rules.